Well, joining us live right now on the broadcast is Mr. P. Chidambaram, Rajya Sabha MP and former Union Finance Minister. Thank you so much, Mr. Chidambaram, for joining us here on Mirror Now. Firstly, the Congress party must be elated with, the observations made in the Supreme Court. If you could take us through at this point in time, what's the mood like? And more importantly, are we going to see Rahul Gandhi, back in the parliament on Monday?
Let's take your questions one by one. The mood is obviously very happy and celebratory. The workers were deeply upset that a court in Gujarat had convicted him for the maximum term of 2 years in a case of slander. This is alleged defamation by words. This is not alleged defamation in writing. I have not come across, and our research does not show, any case since the Indian Penal Code was enacted in 1860, in the last 162 years, where for slander, the court imposed a punishment of 2 years imprisonment. So obviously, the workers were very, very upset because in politics, all kinds of things are said. And look at the British Prime Minister's question hour on Wednesday on BBC. And for a general statement, he was being punished for 2 years of imprisonment. And therefore, today, when the Supreme Court stayed the conviction, the sentence had already been stayed. When the Supreme Court stayed the conviction, paving the way for Mr. Rahul Gandhi to resume his rightful seat in the Lok Sabha, the workers are extremely elated and the mood is celebratory. Now, when will Mr. Rahul Gandhi be allowed to resume his seat? I cannot say. All I can say is the Honorable Speaker must act with the same speed with which the Lok Sabha Secretariat disqualified Mr. Rahul Gandhi. I'm not asking for greater speed, but I certainly would caution against a slow motion action. The same speed with which they disqualified him, threw him out of the Lok Sabha, and asked him to vacate the House, all within a matter of 24 to 48 hours, I think the case requires, the justice requires, that with the same alacrity and same promptness, Mr. Rahul Gandhi must be allowed to resume his seat in the Lok Sabha.
Okay. Mr. Chidambaram, you did mention, of course, that there should not be, an unwanted delay and the Lok Sabha Speaker should immediately reinstate him. But if that does not happen as early as the Congress would hope, is there going to be any sort of memorandum or a delegation meeting the Speaker? Is that something that has been planned as such?
I believe Mr. Adhir Ranjan Chowdhury has already met the Speaker. I don't know what transpired at the meeting, but he's already met the Speaker and apprised him of the order of the Supreme Court. I suppose the order of the Supreme Court would have been uploaded by now, and I'm sure the lawyers are printing out a copy. And sooner than later, maybe as early as tomorrow, the order will be produced before the Honorable Speaker. I'm not privy to these steps, but that is a logical next step to take. Produce the order before the Honorable Speaker and request him that further action should be taken as expeditiously as possible. In this case, there can be no doubt about what the next step should be. The next step should be to reinstate Mr. Rahul Gandhi's membership of the Lok Sabha.
Right, Mr. Chidambaram, now I'd like to get into, the broader picture here with, let's, like you said, the reinstation process has to happen as soon as possible. But more importantly, what does this really mean for Mr. Rahul Gandhi personally and for the Congress party? Because you're looking at, the alliance, the India alliance that has come together. Rahul Gandhi, of course, has been a part of most of these meetings. We've seen him actively campaign whether the Bharat Jodo can be called a campaign, well, that is for the Congress to answer. But more importantly, of course, we've seen multiple events where he's taken part as outreach programs. So are we really looking at Rahul Gandhi eventually becoming the face of the India alliance?
This has nothing to do with the Supreme Court case. We are talking about the Supreme Court order.
Yes.
And you are venturing into areas, territory of which I'm not competent to speak today. But please remember, we are not discussing the merits of the basic criminal charge. There is a finding that he is guilty. Now, whether he's guilty or not, whether the statement made by him is defamatory or not, the appellate court will decide. The matter is sub judice in an appeal in a Gujarat district court. So let's leave that out. We are talking about after he was found guilty, what is the kind of sentence that should be imposed upon him? As I said, and I request my BJP friends to help us in this research, our research does not show there has been any case in the last 162 years, the Indian Penal Code, where somebody has been visited with a maximum punishment of 2 years. This is what the Supreme Court alluded to when they said the trial court has given no reasons why the maximum sentence should be imposed in the case. Please understand the deep meaning of that observation of the Supreme Court. Prima facie, the trial court failed in its duty to explain the reasons why it imposed the maximum punishment. That seems to have largely weighed with the Supreme Court when passing the order of stay.
Well, Mr. Chidambaram, coming back to what you were mentioning, you even in a tweet have said that in the last 2 years for slander, you said for the last 162 years for slander, the maximum punishment of 2 years being given is not, is unheard of. And you've also, in the end, said that the case was manufactured with the sole intention of keeping Mr. Rahul Gandhi out of the parliament. If you could elaborate a little further on that.
I maintain my opinion. Suppose he had been punished for 1 year, 11 months, and 29 days. He would not have been disqualified from parliament nor barred from contesting an election. Let's leave the case apart and the finding of guilt and the punishment. Let's leave that aside. That is sub judice. We are talking about the fallout of that decision, which is disqualification. The complainant is only interested in punishing the alleged defamer. The complainant was not interested in disqualifying the defamer. But why did the judge give a 2-year sentence? It's not far to see. The Representation of People Act and the Constitution says that if you are imprisonment, a sentence of imprisonment for 2 years, you stand disqualified. So I think any person with average intelligence can see that this is not cause to effect, this is effect to cause. Someone was keen that he should be punished for 2 years so that he can be disqualified. And therefore, I maintain my view. And this, of course, is subject to what the court's orders will be. This whole case was a made-up case. We have pointed out that there is no community like Modi. The speech was not made in Gujarat, it was made in Karnataka. Mr. Purnesh Modi, the complainant, did not say how he was injured or affected or wounded. Therefore, a lot of people believe, not only I, a lot of ordinary people believe that you have made up this case.
feel that this particular case or the observation today will have a larger, a picture when you look at overall disqualification of, public representatives?
You see, no, I don't say that. If there are heinous crimes, if there's a crime involving moral turpitude, and there is a sentence of imprisonment for a long period, of course, the person should be disqualified. But I've not heard of slander leading to disqualification. Now, please tell me in which other country does slander? This is not libel. Libel is defamation by written words. This is defamation by oral words, alleged defamation by oral spoken words. Please point out to me, and I may be ignorant, please point out to me any precedent where for slander, a person was disqualified from parliament and the constituency deprived of its elected representative. And further, that person is barred from contesting any election for another 6 years. This is an extraordinary situation.
Okay. Right. Now, also, Mr. Chidambaram, of course, the people of I.N.D.I.A will be happy that their elected representative is back at the helm of affairs. But more importantly, when you look at the larger picture nationally, how important is this? Because him being reinstated, becoming a member of parliament once again?
It is important because he can speak in parliament. His voice was sought to be suppressed in many ways, and this was the final blow. Remember, Indira Gandhi was expelled from parliament. She bounced back and she became prime minister shortly thereafter. This disqualification is equivalent to expelling from parliament. And not only expelling from parliament for the current term, it's debarring from entering parliament for another 6 years. Don't you see the enormity of the consequences of this alleged disqualification and debarring? I think all that has been reversed, at least temporarily, reversed by the Supreme Court. And with great respect, we are deeply grateful to the Supreme Court for setting right things, at least for the time being.
Well, Mr. Chidambaram, before I let you go, one quick question. You did mention that, he gets to speak in the parliament once again. Time and again, Mr. Rahul Gandhi has been saying that, the Prime Minister and the BJP is scared. And that's where all of these decisions or rather attacks on him are coming directly or indirectly from the government and through various other agencies. He's been maintaining this. But now with him, if and when he does come back to the Lok Sabha, do you think you have, of course, at both the houses of the parliament, you have been demanding the Prime Minister's answer on Manipur and various other issues. With Rahul Gandhi now back in the helm of affairs, how much of an impetus is it for the Congress party overall?
It will. Please remember, before this sentence and conviction and disqualification, he spoke frequently in Parliament. Of course, most of what he said was expunged. We find the same thing in the Rajya Sabha. When the leader of opposition speaks, the microphone is switched off. Now, I'm only looking at it from a common man's point of view, common citizen's point of view. So most of Mr. Rahul Gandhi's words in the Lok Sabha were expunged. And I think Mr. Derek O'Brien has pointed out in a column, what are the words being expunged? Therefore, today he will speak. And when he speaks, someone has to respond. And I don't know if the Prime Minister will respond. But in all fairness, the Prime Minister must respond on occasion. I'm not saying on every occasion the Prime Minister must respond. But on matters of grave moment, the Prime Minister must respond. Prime Minister must respond when we talk about Manipur, when when we talk about Haryana, when we talk about the Chinese incursions, the Prime Minister must respond. How can we have a silent Prime Minister, a non-speaking Prime Minister? Now, today, the no confidence motion has been admitted, and it'll be debated on 8th, 9th, and 10th in the Lok Sabha. By convention, by tradition, the Prime Minister always responds to a no confidence motion. In order to draw him to Parliament and make him speak, it requires a no confidence motion. Remember the example I cited a few minutes earlier. Go back every Wednesday in the British Parliament. The Leader of the Opposition and the Prime Minister have a 1 hour question answer, to and fro, back and forth. The President of the United States speaks to newsmen, news media, at least 3 or 4 days a week in the Rose Garden of the White House. That's how democracy functions. You are answerable every day and available to answer every day. Therefore, we think, and I would appeal to the Prime Minister to speak more often in Parliament. He speaks eloquently in public meetings and in rallies and in yatras. Why doesn't he speak in Parliament?
Right, Mr. Chidambaram, I did say it was the last question, but I want to just add one more quickly. And earlier you did mention, of course, you do not want to delve away from the Supreme Court's, observations and what happened today. But it's important and pertinent to note here, it does have a bearing on Mr. Rahul Gandhi's political career ahead. And more importantly, when you look at the entire alliance on all the parties coming together, especially the leaders, several questions, do crop up about who can be the face, who has a pan-India appeal. And now with Rahul Gandhi back at the helm, do you feel that it's going to be, Mr. Modi versus Mr. Rahul Gandhi for 2024?
You are asking this question in another manner, and my answer is the same. This is a question that will be answered by the India Alliance at the appropriate time. Certainly, you're not going to draw me into making a comment. The India Alliance is aware of its responsibility. They have formed an alliance. They have met twice, and they will meet for the 3rd time in Mumbai in a few days or so. And at the appropriate time, the India Alliance will face this question and give an answer. Certainly, this answer is not going to come from me to your question on your channel. You have tried. I'm sorry.
Right, Mr. Chidambaram. Well, you've been patient enough and you've given us very detailed answers. I thank you for your time here. Mr. Chidambaram, there, former finance minister, joining us here and telling us how important this particular observation of the court today is. Thank you once again. Well, meanwhile, of course, the Supreme Court